and then having some other giftings that they've either worked for or they've been blessed with. And, hopefully, again, even for that person, hopefully that person has the opportunity, like while they're there, to have the right advisors and the right counselors put around them to help them really build something and turn it into something that like is exciting and not.
Yeah, so Caitlin Clark is a senior at the University of Iowa, and like you probably haven't seen because you just told me you're not too familiar with her, but she has been absolutely dominating in women's basketball. And it's not just like she's dominating in women's basketball. She's dominating NCAA basketball, period. She's about to eclipse this guy, Pistol Pete Maravich, his all-time scoring record as a male, as a female. So I think she has one regular season game left. And if she scores 18 points in this next game, then she ends up being the leading scorer of all time in NCAA history. And there's even something like with women's basketball where they brought over these other, where like they formed into the NCAA. It was like NAIWA or something like that. And there was this other girl who had just scored like 40 points shy of Pistol Pete Maravich's record. And so she beat that 2 games ago, I think it was. So yeah. My home state of Iowa has, like, I've been thinking it's just like the geo-targeting of the news telling me all about Caitlin Clark because obviously I'm in Iowa and they're like, hey, you probably want to know about this. But no, she's a national sensation. Like, if you were to go to ESPN's homepage right now, she's all over it.
When she mentioned her name along with basketball, then I did know who you're talking about. I haven't been following it super close, but I have picked up on it a little bit and seen some stuff getting posted about her, which is cool. That's exciting. I mean, getting in, if you're in Pistol Pete territory, like that's rare air.
Yeah, well, she's not only in his territory, she's about to just squish him down in the record books. It is pretty cool because it's like she's from Iowa. She's like, I don't know if she's cornbread, but probably she's from Iowa. And it's just been really fun to watch this whole thing happen. Not that I'm into basketball or women's basketball. I mean, I don't think that many people are into women's basketball, but because of her, just yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever her last game was, 870,000 people tuned into her game, which is like the most watched women's basketball game of all time for NCAA. Probably beat any WNBA teams also. And what I think is really cool too about her is she's like getting all this NIL money. So I think the NIL, it's been an interesting system, right? Like how you've seen all of these college kids just stacking mad booty by getting $1 million contracts and jumping into the transfer portal and all this. And like, in some regards, it's kind of an odd thing. But I also think like, man, the NCAA is making money off of their backs for decades, so I think that they're entitled to all the cash they're earning right now.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, and in full transparency, like I have not done as big of a college football fan as I am, hook 'em horns. I have not done a massive deep dive into all of the all of the intricacies of NIL, but in general, like. I definitely think that they deserve to be able to generate income off of revenue that's generated, because of them, and be able to put deals together for that. So that, yeah,
it's bananas that these like multi-billion-dollar institutions, being the schools and the conferences, can make all this money. And then these kids just like, they get a free scholarship and then, they get chewed up and spit out because for whatever reason they get hurt or they're just not good enough to go to the pros. Like they didn't deserve anything. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. I've heard people make the argument that they, that they're getting a scholarship and they're getting their room and their board taken care of and that they should be grateful for that. And while that is true, I don't think that it cancels out the other thing. Like I think the amount of, to your point, the amount of money, again, going back to the football program that I follow, they make an insane amount of money. And a lot of times it is because of the stars on the team, and what people are buying because of them. So, I think that, and there is so much money generated there that I don't think it's unfair for them to get, to get their fair share of that. And hopefully it sets them up. And my hope is that it keeps them in college longer, that they actually stay in college.
See, here's where I disagree with you. Like college kind of sucks in general. Like it's just it's a brainwashing institution. So I would hope that they are like, hey, look, I'm my own man. Like I can be.
I mean, contributing to the football team. I don't mean for their, granted. I mean, if they're in a profession where a college degree is helpful for them, then, and it enables them to stand along. But they can always go back and finish that if they want to. But odds are they're gonna, if they have a good career and they have good money managers, they'll end up becoming good business people along the way to, over the course of their career. I mean, you take somebody like, Magic Johnson. I got to listen to him speak a couple years ago at a mastermind event that I was at. And I mean, I knew the guy was impressive from the basketball standpoint, and I'd kind of heard here and there that he'd really done well in business, but I didn't realize that when he signed with the Lakers, like one of the deals that he cut with the owner was like, I'll come play with you, but you're going to mentor me and you're going to teach me how to be a businessman. And
this was Magic Johnson, not Shaq.
No, this is Magic Johnson.
So then Shaq must have been like, give me Magic Johnson's playbook, and I'm going to go ahead and 10X it.
Must have been, because he's out there clearly crushing the game, too. But crushing. I mean, yeah, dude. And more power to him, man. Like, I love seeing people take what they, their professional sports career became a platform that they launched all sorts of great stuff for. And that's what I hope the NIL helps a lot of these young guys with. Like, I hope that it enables them to be surrounded by good financial minded people that set them up for success. So that way it's, benefits their family, hopefully sets them up to create generational wealth. And they, they're positive contributors to, not just their families, but the communities around them. And like I said, it's like, pro football is great.
Unless you're a running back.
Yeah. Unless you're, yeah, God bless running backs, man. Those guys get beat up. Like, and it's, if I was running back, I definitely would be, I would hope that I was built to be one of those like multi-tool backs where like I'm as good at catching passes as I am at running, to where, you just don't like, you have a chance of a longer career like we're watching with Christian McCaffrey, or hopefully the same cases for like a guy like Bijan Robinson, who just came out of college. And I think he's going into he just finished his rookie year, but anyway, but what was it? So what was it about? You said it was Caitlin Clark. Like, was there anything else that's specific about her that like you were wanting to talk about, or was it just purely just kind of like acknowledgement of like the feats that she's accomplished? And
just like the NIL stuff is really interesting to me because, like, for so many years it was, hey, especially for underprivileged communities, like what was going to happen is like your only way out of this community is to get an athletic scholarship and hopefully make it out of college, and then all of a sudden, like, maybe you make it to the pros. And, that doesn't happen for a lot of people. They've got all those commercials where the NCAA is like, we've got like 25,000 athletes in the NCAA, and, like a small portion of them go to the pros every single year. So I think the NIL is a really cool thing. And Caitlin Clark making her money now, that's great, because like she'd probably make more money from her NIL deals than she's going to make in the WNBA, because like what's the sponsorship money coming in from the WNBA? I mean, the only reason she's famous right now is because she's killing it, and she's getting in all this NIL money. She'll continue to get sponsorships. But if it weren't for the NIL, I don't think that she would be as famous. Like, because honestly, companies have piggybacked off of her success because they can actually invest in her. And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they wouldn't have done that. Like, it would have just been like, oh, there's this girl, she's scoring some points, and maybe it would be like on the radar for ESPN or some of these other companies to be like talking about, because it's like it's a clip. But now people are looking at players as assets. And what I was also gonna like kind of thinking about too is like, hey, if you're coming in and you get NIL money, it used to be like if you're an athlete, you're just going to take the easiest classes so that you can pass, so that you can travel, all that good stuff. But now, like, you're actually making money. It would behoove the athletes as well as the programs that are working with them to train them up on how to become a business person. Like, hey, you now have more money than your peers. Your peers are paying to be here. You're basically getting paid to be here. Like, how do we teach you to do something with this? And not just like, here's how to invest in a mutual fund at 12% rate return, but like, how do you actually build something? Because that's where college sucks. I went to college and graduated in 2009, took the 8-year track or the 7-year track because I decided to try pursuing a professional snowboard career. But I didn't go in there thinking like I was going to learn how to build a business. Even though my dad was encouraging me to do the entrepreneurial program at the University of Utah, I was just like, that, whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and get a degree and graduate. Fortunately, I got a degree in history, so I learned like how the world works. And now, knowing how the world works, it should be that college is equipping you to take real steps towards prosperity, not just giving you an education. And I'm using air quotes because like you're not being educated. You're being indoctrinated. And so like this NIL thing is really adding a new way to think about being taught. Like you have now an opportunity with millions of dollars in your bank account to do something, and you've got some of the best minds in the world. Like even if they are off track in many ways, like you've got some of the best minds running the MBA programs, all these other programs. Like you can do cool stuff with it. Like even if you were just like let's say you're at Stanford and you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but you get a lot of money because you're good on the football team or whatever. It's like you've got a class that's just like, hey man, here's how you like identify people who are in your class, and then decide to like make partnerships with them so you can go build some tech shit. Nobody's talking about that. Like they're probably just like continuing on with the same old.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, if I was an athlete right now and was being recruited, and somebody came and told me, like, hey, so here's like what your NIL evaluation is, and what we're going to do is we recommend that like this is the track that we put you on while you're here at school. We're going to put you in the business program. We're going to surround you with the right professors and also advisors who are going to, while you're making this NIL money, like you're going to be coached and you're going to be advised on how to like actually start thinking like a business person, and thinking forwardly on what you're going to do with this. And we're going to do some things with it while you're here in school, so you can actually start generating passive income like before you've even graduated. Like if you told me that, like I'd be like, sign me up.
Right, and you would try harder on the field. Honestly, because you're just like, dude, like for every degree of performance that I improve on the field, like that increases my NIL valuation or however they do it. And you're just like, there's a direct line from input and output that, like it was there before, but the output was like, do you get drafted? There's 270 players in the NFL that get drafted every single year. Like that's not a lot when you look at the totality of the people in the NCAA, like D1, D1AA.
Longer. Yeah. And let's even take a longer term look at it, and like, what's the life expectancy of the position that you play? I mean, because that's not very favorable either. I mean,
hey, all you linebackers, geez.
Gosh, linebackers and the offensive linemen, man, they get beat up. Gosh, I want to say like the life expectancy of an offensive lineman was like in the mid to late 50s at one point.
I think you're probably still on. Like I bet they haven't had enough improvement in the technology that's like the protective technology to extrapolate like what the improved life expectancy is. But yeah, like it's crazy.
Those are some sobering numbers. But I mean, but think about, gosh, I mean, to your point, like how much more intentional are you going to be with that NIL money? Like if those people are put around you and you're given just a longer term perspective where, to your point, like you're going to be more intentional with your workouts, with your rest and recovery, like, cause all of this is like, you're working towards this investment that you have. I mean, even like looking at social media, like you're probably going to look at your social media totally different. So it's like, cool, we're going to bring you into our, business school. We're also going to give you some people who are going to help you maximize this opportunity and build the biggest possible social media following, which is going to increase your NIL value. Which, it was funny as we first started talking about this, I even started wondering, like, man, like, I wonder, like, would this even be happening? Like if some of these athletes weren't coming into school like with the social followings that they have now as well, where like they can also be they can be promoting directly to their audience. Like I wonder how much of an impact that's had on.
It's gotta be huge. Cause like, why would you pay a college athlete if they didn't have reach? You wouldn't. I mean, sure, you could sponsor them. Like you could get like the top 10, top 20, but like, as you kind of like, if you look at it as a pyramid, like the best athletes are going to get the most, but like it doesn't really matter. Like in the world of business, there's the major influencers and you've got the micro influencers. So even like a micro influencer who's an athlete is still going to be able to command some kind of attention, and then their authority is relative to their position, but they can still make money for a company. I think one of the biggest things too, like if the NIL stuff was to be affected on like with the programs in the schools, is like all of a sudden like, hey, what if you are that one athlete who is able to kill it? You go to the pros, man. You've been taught financial stewardship that most athletes like decades past never were taught, and you're not going to lose it all. Because like how many stories do you hear about like the guys who come in like get a $10 million signing or like initial contract, a signing bonus, and then they have like a 5-year career and then they're out and they're broke. They were never taught how to manage their finances. Like they were destitute when they got into college. They were destitute all the way through college. And all of a sudden they've got so much money. Nobody taught them what to do with it. And then they're...
Oh gosh, I mean, can you imagine the pressure too? The pressure that they probably felt from like their relatives and their friends, you know, who may be in similar situations. So they wanted to take care of everybody. But this, if they were given the tools, like they would also be able to like, you know, educate their friends and their family around them, saying, hey, like I would love to give you all that money, but here's what I'm doing. Like I'm building something that's going to be a legacy, like not just like for in the immediate, and like we're not going to just have like a big party that's only going to last for as long as I'm making money. Like, you know, this is something that, you know, I'm going to be able to help everybody, but it's just going to look differently than how you think, you know, however you would explain that. Like, but, you know, I think a lot of what those guys also have dealt with is like, they're probably generous, giving, protective people that like wanted to, you know, they wanted to have fun and wanted to have nice things, of course. But I think a lot of those guys have big hearts and they end up getting taken advantage of. And this gives them an ability to, you know, would give them an ability to protect themselves from, you know, from things like that, and also protect the people around them and their relationships, you know, and you know, probably be able to like say, hey, I'm not going to just, you know, give you a bunch of money, or I'm not going to just pay for like these just, you know, completely ridiculous vacations for all of us to go on. But what I am going to do is I'm starting these companies, I'm starting these businesses, and like, I'm going to, you know, give you opportunities to like be in this with me. And like, dude.
Yeah, that's the biggest failing of the higher education system right now, is like, that's not what people are being taught. Because they're not being taught. They're being spoon-fed an agenda, which I think we've mentioned this before. It's just like people who are in education, especially public education, and that can include the university system, private universities included, are just being spoon-fed something that puts them, like, that turns them into a cog that ultimately like feeds them into this machine where we're just producing. I'm not against production, but like they're just being placed into a machine where they have no autonomy, where they're not actually being taught to think independently. Like that was the only thing that I got out of my history degree, was like, okay, so things repeat. How do we avoid repetition? And then like, I guess I had the critical mind to say, oh, I have to think for myself and analyze what's going on here. So I think this NIL stuff is a really cool way for people to start re-engineering the education system if the schools go for it. And this is actually where like big businesses or businesses like ours have an opportunity to start injecting ourselves into the conversation and saying like, look, so-and-so, it doesn't really matter what sport you're in. Like chances are your university is not going to take care of you beyond like you graduating in 4 years. Like you want to learn something, like, hey, let's go ahead and sponsor you and let's teach you about our business. Like let's teach you how you could, like, if you're a fan of what we do, if you're a fan of the industry that we're in, like we can sponsor you. And like, as a part of it, like, what if we did stock options? Like, hey, because probably don't need to say too much here, but like, what if a company did have stock options? It's like, not only are you going to get like cash, but now you can exercise stock options and you're an owner in a company. Boom. Like you come out of the university system, you didn't make it to the pros. Well, you actually have ownership in a company now, like, and then you can action that to advantage yourself to higher levels of success or whatever. Like that. It's just like, this is where the education system fails, and I'm hoping they realize that the NIL is actually like it's a paradigm shift. It really is. Like it's a good thing, as much as I hate the transfer portal, to be completely honest. And I know here we are like business guys talking about the transfer portal, but whatever. Like it's just crazy that people can jump in and out like 3 or 4 times. But I get it. Like you're going for the right opportunities. Like we've all done that in business. Like you're like, I'm not going to work with you anymore because this sucks. So I'm going to.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal in its current existence is a slight overreaction to solving a problem that exists. Like I think if somebody really is, you know, missing out on a massive opportunity by having to stay somewhere, like I think people should be able to move somewhere. But the way that it's currently set up to where like athletes have to to like actually enter the portal and miss out on. So like, case in point, like Malik Murphy, like great quarterback, great. This was the second string guy here at Texas, like fantastic athlete.
Boo, Longhorns, boo.
Any other program.
That's because you guys beat us in a bowl game like 3 years ago, so I have to, I just hate you.
Oh gosh, there you go. So anyway, he had to, and this guy was an absolute team player. Like stayed long. He could have gone to the transfer portal like a year sooner than he did. He decided to stick it out, which was awesome. But the way that the portal is designed, like he had to enter the portal and miss out on the college playoff game where he absolutely wanted to be. But in order for him to, make the best decision for him in his career long term, he had to do that. And so the team suffered. He suffered because of it, and the game ultimately suffers. So like that's the part where I'm hoping they fix some of those things. And I don't have an opinion on, on what the fix is there. But like anything else, hopefully the people who are making those decisions are looking for ways to continue to fine tune it. So that way, I think the spirit in which it was created is honored, and like and the fans. Not that the fans. The student athletes, they're obviously the most important ones here. And like, we get to all benefit from like, the sacrifices that they're making and what they're putting out on the field. But ultimately at the end of the day, the fans are the ones that actually are paying, and that's where the NIL comes from. So hopefully the right balance is found there.
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about like how the transfer portal works and how the coaches who are actively recruiting team members to their team are able to declare their intentions to stay. So I'm friends with Brock Purdy's best friend's mom. I know that's kind of a weird one, but like, so Brock has a brother named Chubba, and he was at Nebraska. We beat the heck out of them. Super happy about that. But so he wasn't thriving at Nebraska, so he decided he was going to go to SDSU. Really liked the program, really liked the coach. He goes in the transfer portal, gets picked up, goes to SDSU, and then like 3 days later, the coach leaves. He's like, this is the reason I made the decision. Same thing happened with Nebraska. Like, you had all these people who were in the portal jump over to, or not Nebraska, Alabama. Jump over to Alabama, and then Saban retires. So I think that there's like some things that still need to be ironed out clearly, but it's like, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, opportunity is the good thing. Like, now you have an opportunity. You don't just declare for a school and then have to ride it out. And if you decide to actually transfer, miss an entire year of eligibility, like you can do it much quicker. And then you can like action on things that you are, unsatisfied with, or like you see a better opportunity. I think it's fine. I do think that they just need to make it so that you can't be like, oh, I'm going to jump this many times. Like, I saw this one dude is like in his 9th year of eligibility because of the transfer portal. It's like the dude is older than me, and I'm 40. His 9th year of eligibility for college football. So like that seems a bit extreme. Like, you should probably limit it so that you don't have 90-year-olds playing D1 football anymore. But Caitlin Clark, man, she's just killing it, and I love how this is something that's happening now, and yeah.
And I've seen. There's female gymnasts that are getting great NIL money. I mean, it's like, it's not just like the main sports like basketball and football and baseball. It's some other ones. It all comes down to just like, what their reach is and their influence. So that has been cool to see.
Well, let's talk about that female gymnast. I know exactly who you're talking about. I think every male on the planet, from 5 years old to 90 years old, knows who that gymnast is. And so here's the problem with the NIL. Yeah, I know I'm not going to mention her name because like all of a sudden people are going to Google her and they're going to be like, oh, that's why. And that is the problem with the NIL. It's like this girl in particular she's a good looking girl, and she posts very provocative pictures. Not super provocative. Like, she's not an OnlyFans chick. Hopefully never, but that's also that's kind of the downside. Like, there's this razor thin edge where it's like, okay, so where are you making money off of your athleticism, and where is it actually exploitative, and you're just like actually just being a prostitute without being a prostitute, whore. I don't know what the word is. Like, I'm not saying that this is the case here, but like that's kind of the issue. That's this whole OnlyFans generation too. It's just like, the only good thing about me is my looks. And, I don't know how good this person is in her field of athleticism. Maybe she's awesome, which would be cool. That's not Caitlin Clark's shtick. Clearly, she's not like out there just like, look at me, I'm also a good basketball player and super hot. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being super hot. I don't think there's anything wrong with being super athletic. But like when the NIL or any kind of these deals are like incentivizing kind of that degenerate side of things, like it's a free market, I get it, but that's also the danger. Like when that one individual makes it into the headlines, it's not because like, oh, look at what she just did at her most recent meet. It's like, oh, so-and-so like flashes under boob at such and such event. It's like, oh my gosh, like how based or like debased are we?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, like me personally, like, I think anything that like can lead somebody into a path of, finding themselves, being tempted to dip like into like say pornography. I think that's, where I get cautious and caution other people as well. And again, not to say that that's what happens with the situation like we're talking about, but it can, I guess, and that might be going off down on a rabbit trail. I think where I would like to go with this is that, I'm not going to fault somebody for capitalizing on what they can. I mean, so if they have influence and like they're able to generate NIL money, like if I was them, I would be doing it too. Cause it's like it's, I guess the where's the line, right? Because, maybe, obviously she was good enough to become a D1 athlete. So, obviously like that's, or, in this example, which is fantastic. But she's limited in that, in her particular area, the number of people who are watching women's gymnastics just pales in comparison to who's watching college football. So the value of somebody who's garnering a fair amount of attention in the college, football arena is going to be valued a lot higher. So this is one other thing that she has that enables her to increase that stock. So it's like, no judgment on her for that, of course, but it's like, where's that balance though of where, it goes from being something like that, then turning into something else that maybe isn't healthy for that person long-term, and potentially also not healthy for younger people looking for people to model themselves or what they're doing after. So, and again, this isn't, I don't think we're attacking this particular individual. It's just a conversation where we're kind of poking around this topic and just trying to think through it.
Yeah, I think what's happened is because the NIL is a thing, all of a sudden this particular individual has a lot of eyes on her, and companies are like, oh, wow, like there's a lot of reach here. And that's something that we as businesses do. We like identify individuals, especially in influencer marketing. You're like, how much reach do they have? And then like there's this conversion optimization, like what is the reach equal to conversion? So for a company, let's just say, for instance, I'm going to use Carl's Jr. or Hardee's, depending on where you are in the United States. They see an individual, they're like, oh, she's got a lot of reach. She reaches $1 million or 1 million people every single month. And then her conversion is at like 0.01%, which means if we give her $10,000, she's going to make us $100,000. It's a smart business decision. But where it gets slippery, like you're saying, is like, or what I was saying too, is when what you're doing is basing your valuation off of something that you can't control. This is how I look at it, which is your physical looks. Like ultimately, you're born with the genetics that you have. You can certainly run them into the ground and just become a fat blob and look like total trash and negate what you were born with in terms of the genetic lottery, or you can maintain and look really good. You didn't have any control over that, and so like when people are approaching you, they're looking at you simply as a sales object, which is not necessarily the best way to go about your life. Like if you provide real value, which is like you have a really strong opinion because of a huge backlog of knowledge on a particular industry or subject, like it makes sense to be commanding a lot of money for your expertise. But if all you have are curves and a nice face, like, and again, like this is just the way of modern commerce, like that people are going to pay you for that, and it may end up making it creates a lot of attention, but like you're literally being objectified at this point. Like that, there's a difference between like, hey, you're great at what you do. You're really like, your opinion is valued in this market or this industry. We want to pay you money. Or it's just like millions of dudes would like to get you in bed, so we're going to pay you money. Like, I think like this is where that slippery slope, but this is the whole OnlyFans movement. Like all of a sudden, like you've got thousands of girls, probably millions, honestly, who are just like, I have nothing of value to offer. So what I'm going to do is just expose myself and just become a complete degenerate so I can make a couple bucks. And, you know, some rise to the top, like they have a special asset or maybe whatever, like they're willing to do anything. And so like they're able to make all this money. Like I saw the other day that, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was probably like some Melrose Place actress, like some 50-year-old actress. She was like joined OnlyFans, and then like within a day she paid off her house. It's like, oh my gosh, like what did you do to do that? I don't even want to know. Like this is the concern. Yeah, this is the concern that I have when you're exchanging this monetary exchange for things that are ultimately worthless, kind of. Like, I mean, it is kind of worthless in a sense. Like, it doesn't add anything to anybody's life just to be hot. Like, it's nice, but like it's worthless. Like, you can get married to the hottest girl in the world and find out later that she's a sucky person, and you want to get away from her.
It's fleeting. It's not something that's going to last forever. So it's kind of like one of those, you know. So let's maybe think about it in the same terms of like, say, a running back. I mean, a running back is not going to be able to be a running back for very long. So like, you know, they have this small window of time. Frank Gore was a beast. He was around for longer than most running backs. No,
he's older than me, and he just retired like last year. Sorry, yeah, that's it. You just have to give the dude props.
It's a point worth making. Frank Gore, if you ever hear this, we would love to have you on this podcast and talk to you about how in the heck you did that. That would be amazing. Obviously, the guy had some good genetics, but I'm be willing to bet that dude probably had some insane rest and recovery protocols, like, and you know, the way that he trained to be able to pull that off. Like, you know, the NFL is just, man, the size, the speed, the ferociousness of the dudes that play at that level. Like, dude, it's a miracle there aren't more serious injuries than there are. It just shows like what amazing athletes they are and the amount of control that they have it, you know, at their disposal. But man, but yes, I mean, so again, it's like it's fleeting. So again, it's like, man, like, you know, it's there. So there's a balance, right? There's a balance between like what's healthy and what's not, both for the person as well as what it leads other people to do. There's plenty of models out there that are not doing anything that is, I would say, morally questionable, like, you know, from what's acceptable in society. So let's just say that, you know, that they're operating inside those guidelines, or, you know, that under, you know, those rails. You know, it's like, man, like, again, the NFL is providing an opportunity for somebody who was enabled to generate an audience and create a platform, and then they have this window of time where like they're able to take advantage of, you know, being in this position of being a fantastic athlete, and then having some other giftings that they've either worked for or they've been blessed with. And, you know, hopefully, again, even for that person, hopefully that person has the opportunity, like while they're there, to have the right advisors and the right counselors put around them to help them really build something and turn it into something that like is exciting and not fleeting. And like is a legacy that's like left for their, you know, for their families and the people that they care about, and, you know, the things that they care about. Yeah.
And I think when we were talking about this one gymnast, it's like, it's kind of unfair in a sense, because like their freaking attire is just so revealing in the first place. Like Caitlin Clark is wearing knee-high shorts and she's wearing a tank top. This other one is like barely wearing anything because like, yeah, she's going to go up there on the parallel bars and all this stuff. So,
and I was saying, if I'm remembering the picture that I saw, I don't think Caitlin gets out in the sun very often. I think she's an indoor athlete. And she's playing a sport that's indoors.
Yeah, that's why I'm here in Florida, because like we don't get that stuff. What's the sun? What is this celestial body that you speak of that is hanging 93 million miles away from us? Because like we don't see it. We've got a constant cloud barrier. Yeah, it's no fault against this one person. Like, she can't help how she looks. Like, that's how she was born. Like, same way like an ugly person can't help how they look. Like a really good looking person can't help how they look either. I'm not faulting the system. I am just kind of highlighting like some of the dangers of like, it's not even the NIL. It's just sponsorship in general. I mean, like, look at Kim Kardashian. Like, how did she get to be where she's at? Like, she made a freaking sex tape. It's like, that's what made you who you are. And your dad and your mom, but like that's the thing that catapulted the Kardashians, well, and that's an issue.
Kris Jenner is probably one of the sharpest business minds like alive right now. Let's just be honest.
Which is unfortunate in the sense that like what she did is she's like, oh, my daughter is like in the conversation for whatever, well, because of Ray J, and all of a sudden she's like, how do I make money off of this? Like, there's a point where being a savvy business person can take you into a world of degeneracy and depravity, and I think that's one of the things that like I even am pointing out here is like anybody can make these decisions. It's just questioning your moral and ethical compass and making sure that you're doing the right thing. And Caitlin Clark is doing the right thing. She is staying pasty white and just sinking threes like. That's it, man.
Just rain, just dropping rain. Yeah, I think, man, this is kind of reminds me of a conversation we had recently with someone else that we'll be posting soon, but where, I think, and this is not female specific, this is male and female. Like there are paths you can go down with trying to monetize your personality or your persona or, the things that you've been blessed with or you stumble upon, in the amidst creating like a social media presence. And some of those things can lead you down paths where like you start to value things that aren't healthy for you, that aren't, long term. And I think that's the thing. I think what I hear you speaking to is that like there's, and when other younger boys and girls see somebody that is objectifying themselves in ways that are I guess questionable depending on the way that you look at the world, and they you potentially can go down some slippery paths where like you can be taken advantage of. You can I think there's just a lot there. I think that. At least that's what I hear you kind of speaking to.
I think there's that, and also what the consumers are consuming, right? Like this gymnast, she's in everybody's feed. If you're a male, more than likely you're going to see her pop up. Like one of the things I do when I go through my morning is I go to Yahoo News. I know it's for old people. That's why I do it, because like we sell a considerable amount of products to people who are over 50 years old. But nonetheless, like they have, Gemini is an ad service that runs ads through Yahoo, and this person's name comes up in the sponsored all the time, just because it's like an eye catcher, and then it comes up in the normal stuff too. And the problem with that I see is like as a consumer, what you're doing is you're consuming a person as an object. Now, don't get me wrong, like I'm a victim of this in the sense that like I am quick to click on some of these things that are questionable, and all of a sudden, like what can happen is you realize like, oh shoot, like here I am, like I clicked on an innocent ad on Yahoo, and now I'm like 3 steps into something that leads to the step that leads me to a place that I don't want to go. That's the internet, that's the algorithm, that's how they're programmed. Like that is literally what they're trying to do.
Well, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent every day to pull you in to those spaces, and not just you, they're actually targeting kids.
Right, they're yeah, exactly. And it's like, because this person is a kid, like for all intents and purposes, she's a kid. She can't even freaking buy alcohol legally. Maybe she can now. Who knows? But the people who are looking at her the most are probably children, like teenagers or adolescents, and yeah, probably. Because when I was that age, Kathy Ireland, man, like if I was walking through the store and like walking through Walmart and like, oh, there's a Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, Kathy Ireland's on the front, I'm like, I'm gonna buy that and sneak it into my house. Like nobody's gonna know the difference except for me.
I can't even imagine being, a preteen or a teenager now with having the entire World Wide Web walk around in my pocket. Like, I mean, I I mean, dude, like I myself, like on Instagram, like whenever those pictures pop up, like I have to I don't have to do it much anymore because it doesn't get served up to me much more. But there was a period where I just sit there and just like, click the not interested thing on all of those types of pictures just so they wouldn't stop. And they still pop up every once in a while, but that was something that I had to do. The funny thing is I didn't even know that was an option. And my wife's like, hey, you can like just hold down on it, pops up, and you can say you're not interested. I was like, oh, that you can do that? And like it did. And then that.
Is there a button that says I'm not interested, but like my biology says that I am?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I don't think
it's like, can you find these pictures of my wife?
Yeah, I think I told you this before. Like there was I had a group of guys that I led in Bible study many years ago, and there was not a single one of them that didn't have a porn addiction problem, like as freshmen in high school. And that's just scary. I mean, it's very, very scary. It sets unrealistic expectations for what, sex is meant to be and how it actually really does exist, like in the real world. Like, and being the father of daughters, like, that's, I think about that a lot. Like, how is, so I actually tell all of my girls that I'm like, if you don't want me to ask anybody that you're dating, like, do they have a porn problem or have they ever watched porn? Like, you need to find that out before I meet them. Cause like, I will talk to them about that because I'm going to ask them.
The rule is like they find out first or you bring them over to the house while I'm cleaning my AR.
Yeah. Something along those lines. But so anyway, it's just a different world that we're living in now. And I don't know. I think there's things about it that are really exciting and amazing, and there's other things about it that are extremely scary. As a parent, I don't seek to shelter my kids from things, but I want them equipped and I want them to understand what it is that they're engaging and how to engage with it. So that they're prepared when they're looking at things. It's like when one of my girls was mad at us for not letting her have Instagram. I think she was in, I want to say 6th or 7th grade. We hadn't let her have that. And she was mad about it. And we literally the day that I think it actually had come up again, like the very same day that she was at a birthday party. Also, we also weren't letting her sleep over at anybody's house yet.
Not a bad idea, parents. Not a bad idea.
No, I mean, yeah. If we don't know the parents and we don't know the siblings, like we're just, I know enough people where things have happened with either their sister or their daughter or somebody that we knew when you're younger, like in those situations. And so that was just a rule that we created. But prior to the party, we ended up having this conversation again with like, look, you don't understand with Instagram, there are people who will come into your direct messages. They'll want to start talking to you. And lots of times they're trying to influence you or get you to do things that you really shouldn't be doing. Or there's just something else that, that's at play that's not healthy. And we went back to go pick her up at the party that we took her to. And, she came out, like, I think my wife went into the house and like all the girls were screaming and kind of like yelling and running out of the room. And my wife walks in and she's like, what's going on? And like one of the girls like told her that some guy had just like exposed himself like in a direct message, like sent basically, it sent a dick pic to a bunch of 7th grade girls. And it like, it scared them, like, which is, I think it should scare them. Like it's scary that like somebody that's a full, an adult age male would do something like that to a bunch of little girls. It's absolutely disgusting. I can tell you that like in one of those moments, I wished I knew how to identify and locate where that individual was. But when we got back in the car, I mean, she was in tears and she's just like, why would somebody even do that? And it's like, this is why we're being very careful about when we, allow you to have access to certain things, because there are things like this that like, can happen. And it's not that we're trying to control you or stop you from experiencing the world. It's just like at 7th grade, you're not ready to deal with things like that yet. So it's like, be a kid for a little bit longer. Like the world's not going anywhere. In that respect. So anyway, I don't know exactly how we got down that path, but that was something, that's one of the ways that we've handled Instagram and, as it relates to our kids and trying to protect them from some of the things there that can get sketchy quick.
Well, that's why we can bring it full circle back to Caitlin Clark. She is killing it on the basketball court, making lots of money, not doing anything indecent. That's great. Like, that's what we should encourage everybody to do. Like, have a skill set, optimize, go towards that. Where do you add value? Where do you add like anything to like that benefits the community? Like, millions of people are following her because she's just absolutely murdering the scoring record. So, and I think that's kind of the thing is like there's a lot of things around commerce. There's a lot of things around like what's happening with people who are younger than us because, she's 22, I think she like something like that, 21, 22. And, this is the generation that we have to worry the most about. Like, there are kids or our grandkids if we're listening to this. Like, I'm not yet that age, by the way. Glad I don't have grandkids at 40. But it's a good thing, too, because, like, it could have happened. But that I always want to I always want to reinforce it. Like, the idea here is, like, about adding value and maintaining values. Like, we need to be instilling these in children because, like, if nobody's doing that now, then, like, I think we already realize that our country is running off course. Like, it is running askew. So we need to be able to reel that in. And so having conversations around what is good, what is true, what is right, what is just, what is beautiful. Those are the things that we need to talk about. And then, of course, like the evil and the more depraved things we have to call out. Like, if we don't do that, who else is going to? So let's go Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, man. It's cool. She is clearly put a lot of years and years of time and effort and working very, very hard to sharpen her craft, and and she's been rewarded for it. And I think that's the type of example we want people to see, whether it's sports or it's doing computer coding, whether it's teaching people how to, it could be, whatever it is, whatever the thing is, like, it's like, but go out there and actually develop a skill and develop something that like, brings value to the world to where people want to follow you, learn from you, and do the thing that you're doing. And also, create a better situation for themselves and other people around them.
Yeah, I think that as a business owner, the person that I would rather do business with is the person who adds value, who is actually good at what they do, as opposed to just looking good and having no real talent other than that. Like, that's not a talent, and it's going to fade.